good. Well, I want to introduce everybody. I'm Tom, and I'm going to be one of the regular guys on here. The other guy, Charles, he should be in shortly or a little later. Hopefully, he was doing a shoot today with a movie production group. To my right, I have Amy. Amy is our lab coordinator guru, and she also works on an ambulance full time here locally in Newton County. And we have Steve. He's the clinical coordinator. He's also one of the battalion chiefs here for our local city. So, how are y'all doing today?
Fine.
Good.
It's good to be here.
Well, we'll see what we got going. I am new to this. As soon as Charles gets here, maybe we will do a little better. But Amy knows a little bit more about following this stuff, I think, than I do. But
I think she's been in more movie productions than any of
yeah,
us.
she is. She's our local movie star, and she's being like shy and everything. But it should be like on my stream, shouldn't it?
She is an EMT and plays one on TV.
I think it is better. Where would I find it on here, Amy?
Should just be right there at the top.
You would think. So let me go back to mine here. And here we have a comment. Oh, there we go. That's what I was looking for. So is that how it is? So Megan, how's the EMT school going for you up there? Hey, Steve Milligan joined us. Hey, Steve. Good to see you out there. Remember old Milligan?
I do. And he's supposed to be at work?
Yeah, ain't you supposed to be working? Remember all the days whenever we would, we always had old Steve there to help us in the middle of the night.
Absolutely.
It didn't matter what kind of call it was either.
Yep.
And stuff, we'd always have him there.
Then he decided to go to Jasper County, so we don't see him as much.
Yeah, well.
He got married too, so.
Yeah, but he's saving lives, doing good down there.
Absolutely.
They need his experience. A lot of experience down there, So how's things going with clinical?
Clinicals are going great. We have some good sites. We have a lot of participation. One of our newer sites is Fast Track Immediate Care Clinic. We have about 5 sites with them, and we have a new one in Hampton that is very interesting. It is one of those that you do by video.
Oh,
so,
really?
Yeah,
the telemedicine?
The telemedicine one. So the doctor actually sees the patient through telemedicine, and then you perform the interventions that he orders. So.
Kind of like on the oil rigs and stuff. I wonder, how long is it going to be before that takes hold here in EMS?
Some of it already has in the ER. When they call stroke alert now, if they don't have a neuro on staff, they actually do telemedicine for a neuro up in Atlanta. So that is really taken off and saved. There's no telling how much time getting them transferred up to a facility that can actually take care of the problem. Now Grady has this thing, they can actually go in and cath them and pull the clot out of the brain, out of the vessel in the brain. It's amazing. So the deficits are reducing as long as we can get them there in a timely manner.
You remember what it was like when we started?
Oh,
what we did for stroke patients? That wasn't even an emergency, was it?
No, it wasn't, because you couldn't do anything for them.
It was done. Damage is done. But could you imagine? Do you remember back when, and this was years ago, and we thought they were crazy, and we laughed at them during a stroke class. And we were in the stroke class, and they were talking about having portable CT machines in the ambulance.
Yes.
And we was like, that'll never happen. And now,
we
lo
thought
and
it was going
behold,
to be too expensive, too bulky. You couldn't carry them. Way down the ambulance, change the dynamics.
lo and behold, the technology's there.
Yep.
Just
It's just like doing the telemedicine from the back of the truck.
yeah, that's now with 4G networks. There's the data streams there. You know, the iPhones and Android devices are more powerful than the computers that most people have.
Oh, absolutely.
You can do interviews, you can do FaceTime, Skype, or whatever with the physician. You know, I see our role is going to change a lot eventually.
Oh, yes, especially in stroke and STEMIs. You can now send a 12 lead straight from the truck to the receiving facility, and you go from the ground up the elevator straight into the cath lab.
Right.
It makes that infarct that much less. You save so much heart muscle.
Yeah, and can you imagine if there is a portable CT and they already have that for strokes?
Oh, yes.
And that's already done, and that can decrease a lot of time there. So there's a question here. What is the most rewarding thing about being an EMT?
Amy, you're the newest one.
Yeah, so what's so
You
rewarding?
have to put me on the spot.
Yeah.
I guess just sometimes when you can put a smile on their face when they are at their worst. I think that's it.
I think that's a noble cause.
Yeah.
I think everybody has a different idea of what brought them to the service, and it's all about serving people. So whether it's pediatrics, geriatrics, adults, special needs, everybody has their one call that they'll remember for the rest of their life.
So, man, that all sounds good. And I'm going to be the devil over here.
Be the devil.
Be the devil. I get to be the devil sometimes. You know, rewarding. That's like sounds like what you would say to a group. But really, what is the drive? What really drives you? You want me to tell you mine?
Tell me.
Tell you? Man, I love it. Trauma, the excitement, getting in there and making somebody's day better than what it was. Because when we get there, their day's pretty crappy.
Yeah, it's true.
And if we can make it just a little better for them and get them to the hospital and maybe save their lives, that's great. I love that.
There again, I like the medical part. It's more as the investigation. Is it the CHF? Is it the COPD? Or you got to make sure that you're giving the right medications. You got to make sure you're giving them at the right time. You don't want to give a COPD patient or a CHF patient the wrong medication at the wrong time because you make them worse.
Or flood them, give them a little bit more fluid.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Put the puzzle pieces together.
Yes.
And sometimes putting that puzzle together is like awesome, especially when you go there, you drop them off in the ER, and you come back and you ask, "Hey, what was up with that patient?" And you were right.
Yeah.
But then there's
How
also
many times do you walk through the door and they say, "Hey, can you tell me your medical history?" Well, I have COPD and I have CHF. Now we got to figure out which one's exacerbated. And then we got to fix it. That's the draw for me, is that investigative part.
Yeah, remember my roots were, I was an Army medic.
That's true.
So
you got more of the trauma.
Yeah, I loved that. And then when I flew with Emory Flight, a lot of that was trauma.
Yes.
Or that was the part I liked. The inner facilities, I didn't like those as much. But
everything was already done by the time you got there most of the time.
But yes and no. But a lot of times we go to these smaller facilities and the treatments were not done correctly, or it was something that needed to be fixed, like a different medication given. We'd get there a lot of times and the facility needed the patient intubated or airway control or something like that, So, let's see, what is the most difficult situation you faced as an EMT, Amy? And what got you through it?
I would probably have to say the 13-year-old who sliced her arms up. Probably just sticking with her and helping her because they didn't really want to do anything for her at the hospital. They kind of sat her up front, and so just kind of staying up there. And there was another nurse that actually helped her and got her back there. So just sticking around and making sure she was okay.
Yeah, those calls are how young were they?
13.
13.
Same age as Sarah.
13. Yeah, and it just makes your heart want to reach out to them and be mommy, or daddy, right? And help them. But there's a limit to what we can do. Unfortunately, we want to do our best all the time. Though, remember, I know y'all hear it, but rule number 1, people die. Rule number 2, we can't always change rule number 1. Rule number 3, we always try our best. Always to make a difference. And sometimes, the definition of an emergency, that's something too I think gets misconstrued in EMS is people get into it and they're expecting like every call to be lights and sirens, starting IVs, defibrillating, giving drugs, blood splattered everywhere, or people not breathing good. But the example Amy gave with the 13-year-old, that's just as much of an emergency.
Absolutely.
As any other call. I don't see, my taste is not doing inner facilities. I mean, that's just not. I won't. I'll do it. It's not my favorite thing to do, but I recognize that getting that guy from Newton to downtown Atlanta to the cath lab, that's an emergency. Mm-hmm. He needs to get to that treatment. Or taking that patient from the nursing home to dialysis, that's an emergency too.
Absolutely. And one of the things that we try to teach is that when that person picks up the phone and they call 911, that is their emergency. Mm-hmm. Whether we think it's an emergency or not, that is their emergency. Yep. And we have to deal with it, and we have to mitigate it, and we have to make it better.
And that's what we signed up for.
It is. All hours of the day or night.
So, I got a question here. What's the biggest difference between the condensed boot camp style EMT program and your online program, and what makes yours better? I think they may be talking about, I know there's a couple things, but they may be talking about they've got the 2-week boot camp EMT program that's out in California that a lot of people fly out to. And it's 2 weeks, and you start, and it's like 10 hours a day for 2 weeks, and you get everything done, and then you fly back. Mm-hmm. What's your opinion on that?
For me, I think that it would be when you got out there in the real world, your patient care may not be as good because you didn't retain as much information as far as like medical issues.
I could see advantages to both. I think that if you go out and do a 2-week boot camp, then you have a background. So just like you when you were an Army medic, you come out into the civilian world, you don't have a licensure. You need a licensure. That 2-week boot camp may be all you need. Right. On the other hand, if we do an online program that's 8 months long, like Amy says, you're going to retain a lot more information, and you're going to have that flexibility to work that 40-hour-a-week job and continue your education.
Yeah, the 2-week program, that's all you're doing for 2 weeks.
Yes, that's it.
So,
I mean, that's going to cost you money in flights, in the class,
hotel, food,
time. Not everybody has it.
Mm-hmm. And then there's, you really, but I can see an advantage to a 2-week program is when you're there, you're immersed in it, and you're really applying yourself to it. Sometimes with the longer program, you kind of have that, well, I'll get to it next week mentality. And the next thing you know,
you're behind.
You're behind. So, but our program, we have a 10-week program.
Yes.
That I think was a big success. We had 90+% completion rate. We're waiting to get everybody so they can test registry. We had 100% registry pass rate on the practicals, and they were one of the best classes to do our practicals because we had like 30 students here that night, wasn't it? 25 or 30, and we got everybody done fast because. And the reason why we were able to get them through quickly is because they passed the first time. There was the retest, and whenever they went in, they did it. But they came in instead of like with a 2-week camp, you got to come every day. An hour thing, it was they come in one day and then twice a week,
twice a
Monday
week.
and Thursdays, or Tuesday
Tuesday
and
and
Thursdays. And whenever they were here, when they're here, they're doing labs, asking questions, and we actually threw a little more in there for them. And
I think they did better with that schedule, that regiment
mm-hmm.
that they had, and they knew they had to have things done at a certain time.
And it's fast.
Yes.
10 weeks is fast, but it's also long enough to, hey, I'm confused here, help me. You know, where you actually have some time to do it.
I agree.
I think that's
one of the biggest advantages to our program is we are flexible and we have instructors that work in the field and we can work with the students.
right. Yeah, I think so too. And I think Charles just got here. Hey, Charles.
Hey, Tom.
So we'll get Charles in here in a minute. I'll change spots. He can sit over here, or actually, Steve probably can come over here, and I'll go take the seat behind the computer.
I was going to sit in your lap.
Hey, come on, big boy. I don't know, me and you in the same chair. The chair might not make it, Charles.
That's true.
Here, all right, we're gonna play musical chairs.
Howdy, everybody. Oh, squeeze in there.
Well, we've been doing our best without you.
I'm sure you've done excellent.
This is Charles. He's going to be one of our hosts on a regular basis with us. And I'm going to try to see if I can transition it so that we're both here. So I'm going to be.
Oh, now this is a dangerous question here.
Yeah.
What are some of the most memorable moments as an EMT? The non-illegal ones or the legal ones?
Do you want medical? Do you?
Statute limitations being what it is.
So let's go with most memorable. Let's go with our work related, the ones that we wouldn't get in trouble with. So Amy, you're the newest here. What's yours so far?
I'll jump out. I'm not afraid because I don't work in the field anymore. You can't come after me. I was a rookie. I was a rookie just out of EMT school, and I got hired by Athens Regional Medical Center, which is a very hard place to start as a rookie. And we got called to our own EMS station. So most of the ambulances were out of the hospital. We had one station at the time out away from the hospital. And we were at the hospital, and we got a call to go to our own station to meet somebody. We're all confused. Well, this person had been coming in. They were stage 4 cancer. They had been coming in for a treatment, and basically the patient stopped breathing. They were in a personal vehicle. Somebody was driving, family was driving them. And my medic, this is when you're a rookie, man, you rely on your medic a lot, right? And he's panicking. I mean, he's weaving in and out of traffic, so my anxiety is going up. And we get there, we jump out, and she wasn't breathing. And we put her on a stretcher, we go to put her in the truck. And he goes, I'm going to tube her. I'm like, okay, now lay her down. Actually, had agonal respirations. And I lay her down, and he wasn't ready for that. And we're like scrambling to put stuff. And he goes, oh crap, she's not breathing. I'm like, you told me to do it, So we got to fast forward on that button unfortunately. That was one. I remember Tammy Bird took me aside later, and I think actually Arthur Curtis as well. It's like, because I got in the truck after that, they backed us up. I got in the truck, they got the tube and all that, and I drove like a bat out of hell, which of course there was the medics all over the place. And I won't say which was which, but there was a nice presentation and a not so nice presentation after that call about how to drive when medics are in the back of the truck. But I learned my lessons very quickly. But that was a rough way to start my career, man.
I think your rookie year is always your worst year.
I think I hit every bump the first week.
Like physical bump in the road?
Yes.
Or, okay.
Yeah, I was a brand new medic, and we called a head-on collision, 2-car, down on County Line Road, which is Jasper-Newton County line in the middle of nowhere, right next to a cow.
Oh, yeah, I know where that is, yeah.
Man, we were out in the middle of nowhere. No other trucks available. Fire trucks show up first, and we get out. We start triaging. We only got 2 patients. We go by the first one and take a look at him. He's got multiple fractures, but he's got open airway. He's breathing adequately. He's got a good pulse. Stick a firefighter with him and say, hey, if you get any changes, let me know. I'm going to go check on this other guy. Get down there, and he is pinned up against the dash, agonal respirations. I said, we got to do something. So we get the bag out. I get everything out. And I put OPA in him. I say, hey, he accepts OPA. Let's tube him. So they cut the top. The firefighters are there. They got all their extrication equipment out. So they cut the top of the truck off. I crawl up into the back of the truck. I stick my laryngoscope in, and I'm looking down from the top to the bottom, and I actually got the tube on the first try.
Awesome.
So that was one of the most memorable calls I had. Now, naturally, when we rolled the dash, it was a different story. But
sure.
We had 2 helicopters on the scene, and the flight crew were just awesome. They rode in with us, and he went into arrest. But that was one of those you'll never forget. It's getting that tube when they're upside down.
Yeah, it's hard ones, definitely.
Yes.
Wait, Thomas.
Hey.
I know you got stuff to talk about.
You know, man, I think my most memorable one, you know, we all have got a lot that we did, and where we did a lot of life-saving stuff and saved the day. One, y'all know James, who works here. Yes. Me and him used to work together in Alabama, down in L.A.
God, you keep hearing about Alabama. You left for a reason, man. You're in a better place now. You can be untraumatized.
Okay, yeah, I need therapy. So we're running this call down in rural Alabama. Now, Mobile is the second largest county in Alabama, but Alabama's still rural, right? So we're going way up north Mobile to an MDC. Now, it takes about 40 minutes to get there.
Holy cow.
Yeah, I mean, it's way out in the boonies. There's volunteer firemen there. And this car went off the embankment into the water at a bridge. And you see this car stuck in the mud. Now, down in Mobile, you know the water's brackish. And when you have warm, brackish water, what do you have? Alligators, right? So you got the gators. But so we get there, and there's a guy in the truck. You can see him; he's alive. You can see him breathing. The fire truck's set up on the bridge. They got the lights out. You can see the patient. There's blood in the water, but nobody's going down to help him. Everybody's sitting there. So James and I get out. We jump out. We're like, "What are y'all? Let's get down here, get him out." So we can jump in, get him out the bank, and everybody's doing what we told them to do. And but then we had to fly him out because it's a long way to go. So South Flight was the helicopter service down there, comes, lands at a baseball field, picks him up, and then this was the cool thing. They go to the other end of the baseball field, and then they turn around because the guy was kind of big, so they got to get speed, and then they get the speed up, and they're coming right towards us, and they lift off right over us. So we're like, he's going up, right? He's going up, right? So after it was over with, you got this old volunteer fire chief. I swear he had a big old chaw backer in his mouth, right? And but he also has a cigar, so he's not getting enough nicotine. So he's got it going, and he comes up there and he goes, "Y'all are either brave or y'all stupid." We're like, "Excuse me?" Because we're like on top of the world right now. We done went down as a big trauma. It was just us and 3 other volunteers. Mm-hmm. That's what it was like down there. Sometimes you're lucky if you get anybody. It's like working, some real rural counties. And he goes, there's alligators in that water? And I'm like, well, why didn't you tell us? You'd think you would have been screaming, hey, there's alligators in that water. But I think they were all gone. Whenever that boom hit, they scattered, But I'll remember that call till the day I die, probably. Because, we were covered in mud, getting up that mud bank and everything, and just the vision of that old country guy, And he didn't say, y'all stupid. He said, y'all some dumb. But he was nice about it, and it was, it was a good time. And that's what we were talking earlier. To me, that's
right up your alley.
That's what I like doing. The guy survived, so if we wasn't there, Somebody else may have showed up, and he may have. But, it was my calling to be there that day. So we were there.
I see Steve Milligan's watching. And I got to say, man, no matter what time of day or night, every county's got at least one good first responder that will always be there. And for Newton County, there's always Milligan. I always call him Mulligan just because he helps me do it over. But I'd always look up. He'd either beat me to the call or he'd be walking in the door right behind us. And on every call, the medical calls at 3 in the morning, the BS, my foot hurts at 5 in the morning, he's there. And it was, when you have good volunteers like that,
it makes our job a lot easier.
Yeah.
And Steve's one of the better ones.
Yeah, he says here, I got a bunch of calls I'll always remember with Tom. And, yeah, whenever I was on Station 1, it seems like sometimes we were the crap magnets, wasn't we, Steve?
Now, I see a good old boy just joined in the room. Mr. Paul Crumless.
Is he?
Yeah, he popped in.
Hey, Paul.
And I can't even begin. I can't tell most of the stories about me and Paul.
Oh, yeah.
It's not that way. There's something wrong with that boy. I like him.
Yeah, I like him too. He's a good one, though.
He is.
He's a real good one.
He and I have been on a lot of scenes together. Fire, medical, and the dive team.
He does not hesitate to mock you openly, though, if you're doing something wrong on a scene. There's more than one call sitting there, beat the fire trucks in, your engine run rolling, like, I had some words to say. Sure enough, your old Crumless came over my shoulder. McFall, what are you doing up in there? It's like, boy, get back on the truck. I got this. But he was always there to put his hands in when needed. What about you, Amy? You're awful quiet.
I'm good. I'm listening to all y'all stories.
She like a new EMT because, old EMTs is like, you guys shut up. I got the stories. Because according to EMTs, they're the ones that save the day. The paramedics just get their hands held.
So this is the saying, right? Paramedics save lives.
EMTs save paramedics.
Yep. Sure do.
More than one occasion.
More than one. It is so important to have a good EMT. It's hard working two medics sometimes, isn't it?
Oh, they butt heads.
Yeah. Sometimes, like, who's in charge here? I remember in Newton, we used to always have two medics most of the time. And we would always call it teching. Remember? Yep. We were teching. We wasn't double medic when you came to Newton.
Every once in a while we were, but not as a full crew. It wasn't.
Yeah, before that we were double medic, except Shirley.
Yes.
Right, Shirley.
And that's still double medic though. I mean, come on, it's Shirley.
It's Shirley. Love Shirley to death. Yep. And I think I was one of the first EMTs, and then Steve, you were EMT there too, right?
Yeah, I've been there
a long time ago.
28 years off and on.
So some of us they hired as EMT. I was waiting on reciprocity to move over from Alabama, and they hired me. But it was harder. We would have to at the beginning of the shift say, okay, I'm teching first, you're teching next. And if you were teching, then if you wasn't teching, then you had to be an EMT.
Yep.
You had to step back and say, it's not mine, but it usually worked out well. But I like the combination paramedic EMT. I do. I feel like for me, whenever I was working, it gave me an opportunity to teach.
Oh, absolutely. And it makes it easier on those EMTs when they go to paramedic school.
Yeah.
It really does. It makes a difference.
And having a good EMT, and that's something I want us to emphasize here is about how important it is to be a good EMT. When that paramedic can't drop that ET tube, that EMT needs to step up and say, here's an oral airway, here's a combi tube, king airway.
The hard part is not just stepping up, it's the stepping down as the medic. Admitting that, okay, I'll do the lesser route, or the less technical route, I guess is a better word.
Yeah. The least invasive.
What defines a good EMT then?
Yeah, Amy?
I don't know. I love to tech. I ask, can I have this one?
That's so much better than the ones where I can't do that. I'm not partnering with a driver. I need a tech that'll be with me.
Remember they used to say back in the day the medic patch was a stop sign,
mm-hmm.
and the EMT patch was round, and they used to say the EMT patch was
With a
round
steering wheel. Yeah.
And the medic patch was a stop sign because all the responsibility stopped there. And I know when I became a captain at Newton, I put an end to that. I'm like, no, if you're going to work for a 911 service, you're going to be a 911 medic. And I know Charles remembers that because he was on my shift. And I made all of mine take ACLS. I made them all take PALS. That was a requirement. And sometimes they would try to fight it. But Luna was like, no, that's the training for the day. You're going to work here, you're going to do it. And they did it. And then once they did it, they loved it.
Right.
They're like, man, they got their ACLS card, they got their PALS card, they knew they couldn't do the drugs and stuff, but there's things they can do that is ACLS related, but they had that knowledge and they felt empowered. And someone went on to paramedic school after that.
Yeah.
But I think a good EMT is somebody who wants to learn, who wants to keep learning, and wants to be there for their medic partner.
I'd rather have an aggressive one than I had a passive one.
Yes.
Yeah. I want somebody who's going to step up and say, hey, like Amy said, I want to tech.
I want to take, hey, teach me. Let me do it. Let me try this. Hey, can I get that IO? Hey, can I get that EJ?
I had an EMT that always wanted to go for the IO before he would try the I mean, he was just looking for the opportunity to go for the IO. I'm like, dude, just it's a vein. Just stick to vein. Be easy, man. I know sometimes there's personality differences, right? Not everybody clicks, but that being put aside, I've kicked 2 EMTs off of my truck in my career. I did it for 10 years. And in that entire 10 years, I only kicked off 2. I only lasted with more than 6 months. I lasted with 1. That was Suzanne Ward. She was with me for a solid year before she went to, and then when she went to paramedic school, she got on the captain's truck so she could do school. I won't name the EMTs I kicked off, but the reasons were, one guy, he refused to take anything. And oh my God, if they complained of chest pain, he freaked out and there had to be an ACLS protocol. I'm like, dude, I went and asked the catch questions, right? Hey, stretch for me. Does that hurt? Oh yeah, that really hurts when I stretch. It hurts when I breathe. He's like, all right, how about we walk out to the truck? Freaked him out. He shut the doors on me. I'm like, you're going to take this. No, I'm not. Bam, shut the door. I was like, so once we finish the call, I said, get your crap, put it in the truck. We're going back to the head station. We're swapping out. And the other guy was just, he was having a bad time in his life. And as much as I and other people tried to talk to him and help him out, he wasn't dealing with it very well. And he's putting me and my patients in danger. I mean, he ran it without lights and sirens. We're just driving around town. He ran a stop sign because he wasn't paying attention. I mean, he just blew right through it and then lied about it. And I'm sitting in the seat next to him. Oh no, the brakes. Well, no, we got to go to the station, and that resulted in some other things going on. But what about you guys? You ever thrown somebody off your truck?
I haven't. I wanted to.
So I'm the only asshole in the room. All right.
Looks like we're split. Some hate driving and some like driving.
Yeah.
I like driving too. But sometimes I like teching. But I've had to, I don't think, there's been a couple times where I've had to put a partner out because I'm working for a 911 service, and you have to be able to perform to that level. And whenever you've got a patient that's dying, it's not okay to say I can't do it, or refuse to treat a patient. That's
I'll put a caveat on that. There's a human level that you just get overwhelmed. There's that caveat. There's going to be a situation where you just get overwhelmed, and that happens. But that's rare, right?
Yeah, very rare.
Most of the time, what you're referring to is you absolutely could do that more, and you're just freaking out for no reason, or you're refusing. And
Well, I mean, I had a call. It was a pretty bad call, pediatric call. And I understand, moms see kids, but you know what? You're an EMT. The public expects you to perform at a certain level, and you need to be able to do it. And if you can't do it, well, then you don't need to be in that position for the public. Because whenever that you respond to that child, that mom and dad expects you to save that kid's life. And you need to be able to do that. And the only way to get to the point where things like that don't bother you, I feel like it's taking training seriously. taking your EMT training seriously and knowing what you're supposed to do. Because so many times people just skim through, or whenever they do their weekly training or their continuing education, they just want to get the credits. You know, they don't pay attention. They really need to do the training because we don't run a lot of pediatric calls. So we need to train them. What do they call that? That high risk, low quantity population. So it's not every day you go out on a kid that's in critical condition, and that's not the time to stand at the back of the truck and start crying. Whenever the kid needs to be intubated.
Especially if you're the medic.
Yeah. When the kid needs to be intubated, you need an IO started. You need to get a helicopter coordinated. Now it's okay to do that. Don't get me wrong. Afterwards,
right?
After the call's over, let's go to the station. Let's get together. Let's cry it out. Let's talk about it. Let's deal with those emotions. But at that moment of time, our priority, we all should have took an oath that our priority was to help that patient. And we're not helping them if we're standing outside the truck crying.
Yeah. And going back to the training, when these new EMTs come to lab, they need to build that muscle memory. They need to put that systematic approach to assessing those patients. It needs to be second nature. And once they get that muscle memory built, that's going to make them more confident in the field.
Yeah, the call that ultimately set me on the path to figuring out if this was the right career for me, because I've been in it for a while. I was working for National EMS, and we got a call somewhere. I'm not sure. I don't remember exactly where it was, but I want to avoid HIPAA stuff anyway. But it was a kid, and they were rock climbing on this special camp thing. There was actually a nurse on scene watching them do it. And he was allergic to bee stings, but they never found anything like that. He just was climbing up the wall, stopped climbing, just went dead weight. They lowered him down. He wasn't breathing anything. 13-ish years old. And the first engine got on. They were an ALS engine, so they had or a BLS engine, but they had the AEDs and stuff. And they'd already shocked him twice with the AED by the time we got there. We were very close behind them. And this whole thing's going on. And like you said, it's just muscle memory. It's just going by clock. And I'm the only medic. We didn't have time for backup. I was like, this we're going to. And at some point, we got the tube instantly. We got everything instantly. And it's just going textbook smooth. TV show smooth. And I look up and everybody's staring at me. And all I can think of, I got to keep my stuff together because as soon as I lose it, it's going to go to hell after this. And it took a long time after. We can talk about that at some other point with another question about how I dealt with it. But yeah, just to look up and see everybody, you can see in their eyes, they're struggling with it. And they're looking to me to not struggle. As far as I know, I didn't, but I did, It went so smooth. Before we got to the hospital, I was able to sit back and just reassess because somebody was breathing for him, somebody was doing the chest compressions, and it was just that really surreal time slowed down moment. And I knew it was going to be bad for me after that at that moment. But that's where all the training comes in. Is you do keep it together, and then you quit afterwards. It's not quite how it happened, but
someone asked you a continuing question.
Yeah, but what do y'all mean about put them out? I know for myself, they were my partner on my truck at this station. I had them gather all their bed gear and stuff, put it in the ambulance. We went to the main station where the captain or commander was, and I said, get out of my truck. They got all their stuff. I got a new EMT, and they transferred it to my truck. That's what I mean. Y'all said y'all haven't put anybody else out, really.
No.
So we finished the call and we're professional about it, but that was it. It's like, I'm not going to run the rest of the shift with you.
And here again, we don't mean just by putting them out that they got fired or anything.
Right. No, they just got a new partner.
Remediation training. It could have been.
Right.
There could have been a lot of different things going on. Just getting put out is not fired. It means that something went wrong.
You didn't mesh.
You didn't mesh.
Yeah.
There's not always that cohesiveness between the two people, and you have to have that in the field. You really do.
I would say I wasn't the easiest person to get along with back then. I was very controlling, very much. I defined myself as I had to be the best at what I did. And I would tell new EMTs, I will beat you to the truck every time. And there was a few other little things, because this is what we do. And it raised the EMT level up, but it burned me out because that's what actually, two stories colliding there. That's what hurt me on that call with the kid was everything went right. Before that moment, I could say, well, old people die because they're old. Traumas die because they're traumatic. You could rationalize what you did or didn't do. And then that call where everything went right, there's no reason. So it broke my sense of control. But I think I did okay. I got along with most people. It was just the actions. When you refuse to tech anything, when you refuse to speak on a TV show, I put you out.
I'm a question monitor.
We need more questions.
Well, I got Mary made a comment about AMRs now running double EMT trucks. It's an ALS unit still because it's either intermediate or advanced on it as well. And I can see that. I mean, I've always been a proponent that if you're an intermediate or an advanced EMT, I mean, you're an EMT. It's an emergency medical technician. And there's nothing totally wrong with that, keeping staff. I'd rather an advanced EMT or intermediate show up than nobody show up. And if that's what you got to do, that's what you got to do, right?
Yeah, I agree. The only question I would have for Mary is what makes it an ALS unit?
Well, by definition of the Medicare and stuff and billing, because it's an advanced EMT, and they can start IVs and stuff. That's considered advanced for billing. So that's what.
So the intermediate or the
but
advanced EMT.
Can't advanced. I'm not familiar with advanced that much now. They came along after my time, but can't they do certain level of cardiac drugs and certain levels?
They can administer more drugs than the intermediates could, and it is more cardiac drugs. They can give the nitroglycerin, they can give the aspirin, they can start the IVs.
And they can do an EKG,
yes,
but they can't interpret it. They can hook the EKG up and transmit it.
Gotcha.
So the doctor can,
and then the doctor can, do whatever.
Yeah.
Where I work, we still call that a BLS truck because I worked on one the other day.
Yeah, I think here in Georgia, for years and years in Georgia, an EMT, what you called an EMT here was actually an intermediate everywhere else in the country. It was an I-85 intermediate. Where I came from, they were I-99s, which are far more advanced. I-99 is more advanced than the advanced EMT. And now they've kind of brought them all down. Matter of fact, whenever the new standards came out, the I-99 could take a bridge to go to paramedic. Because they're that close to paramedic. I think the I-99 is more like here would be cardiac tech. But
I think I'm still a cardiac tech. I had to get that. Okay, so I call it super certification because I was a paramedic. But when I left the active field of EMS, I went to an office job. And even though I was paramedic, just by their corporate standards, they required cardiac tech as well. So I went and got that. I think I still got it. I can't remember. But that was almost a downgrade, to be honest.
Yes.
But, I mean, you get a lot more focus on that. I had to learn stress testing. I will never do stress testing in my life. But I did. Now, here's some good questions. And I want to pose this to Steve. You said you've been around for over 20 years.
Yes.
And I'm posing this to you from an outsider when you're looking at your crew. Chelsea Hamilton asks, what to watch out for to prevent burnout in EMS?
You want to make sure that you're treating all your crews as equally and equitably as you possibly can. I'll give you for an example, and I can relate back to Newton where Amy works. Those crews only have so many ambulances, and they have over 11,000 calls a year. Where you're talking, if you break down 11,000 calls a year, divide that into 4, then you're almost at 3,000 calls each. So that you got to watch out for that. You don't want to overburden them. You don't want to make them where they're spending most of their waking hours running calls and not being able to get their sleep, to get their rest, because they still work at 24/48, where a lot of services go to 12s or 14s, 16s, things like that. Another thing you need to watch out for is when people become standoffish. They don't want to become involved in things. You want to look for, see if they have any type of depression, if they're having difficulties at home,
Mm-hmm.
you want to make sure, you want to check and see if they're having a drinking problem or even drug problems. You have to be aware of those things. For paramedics, I mean, and even EMTs, those drugs on those trucks are very accessible. And it's just as easy to write it off on somebody that you went out on a call with and give it to yourself. So you have to be aware of those. That's a very good question. And that leads to burnout.
Yeah.
Or just someone working too many shifts in general.
Yeah, 48, 24s are tough.
Yeah. Well, in this industry, sometimes to pay your bills, you've got to work 2 full-time jobs.
Oh, absolutely. But it's like the fire department. I work 24 at the fire department. I turn around and work 24 at EMS. I split the two. If you're doing 48s on a truck, on an ambulance, then you're pounding yourself. Because you could run back to back to back to back cardiac arrest, or you could run back to back to back to back what we call just general calls. The general sickness, the nausea, the vomiting, the abdominal pain, whatever. Those type calls. And they all wear on you. They're all mentally challenging in their own right.
As far as burnout, I never felt like I had a space to talk to anybody about anything serious. I met my wife when I was an EMT, and she was working as a clerk at the ER in Morgan County. And I went through paramedic school while we were dating, and I got my numbers right before we got married. And of course, that changes the stress levels. And then you got this new marriage and everything else, which has its own bumps and everything. But I never felt like I could talk to anybody on a serious level. There's this, for lack of better words, is this bro wall, right? We're even the women, we're manly men, we're manly women. We don't talk about our feelings. We come and smoke cigarettes and tell stories that have dark sense of humor, and that's how we de-stress. And I even had a partner who went through something similar where I could see him spiraling down to burnout. And as much as I tried to even talk to him, I didn't know how at the time. I mean, I do now, but I didn't know then. And he had nobody to talk to. And then because we always find this problem, and that's the other thing that you look for, is when people start really honing in on one problem. And for him, it's like, I can't believe this new guy just came in and he got more money than I did. And it became about how much he was getting paid. It's like, but that's not the real issue. What Tom and Steve, what do you guys do to change that atmosphere to where you could feel like you have a safe space to come in and talk about what you're thinking about and find out you're not alone going through what you think you're going through?
Well, if you remember what we used to do, Charles, when I was a captain and we worked together, it's called dinner.
Yeah, we did that.
You know, getting together, cooking a meal, sitting down and helping each other. You know, by everybody participating in fixing dinner, everybody eating together, talking and having a good time, and being able to talk about, you know, the calls that we run. You know, you got to do it in a safe zone because you don't want to do this in the cafeteria. You don't want to do it where family members can hear you. But, you know, sometimes you may need to have a close friend that you can, hey, you want to go fishing? And always be prepared because somebody's going to ask you that. And don't always say, man, I can't or whatever. And if you can't, I understand that. But don't just say, I can't. Say, hey, what's up? Because Steve's did that to me several times. Where he's like, hey, man, what's going on? Something you want to talk about or something? You know, at least leave an opportunity there that if somebody is trying to reach out for help, that it's just not no. You know, and especially as a leader, you know, we have a responsibility to check. And we have a responsibility. Steve, you did a good example of some things to look for. Like you start seeing, you know, different behavior with somebody, one of your crew members or your partner, then you have an obligation to not just ignore it. You know, I'm not saying you got to go run tattle, you know, because not everything requires an intervention. It just might require, hey, let's, you know, let's go outside in the bay and talk.
Mm-hmm. Oh, man.
And that's one of the things, like I've been doing it for a long time, so I've had a lot of different classes. And one of the best classes I took as a manager was peer counseling. How to talk to people about their problems. It's just being open and letting them come to you and saying, I got this problem. It's you going to them and being open and saying, hey, how about telling me your problems? And making them feel comfortable about doing it and letting them know that what they say is confidential and that whatever they say to you will not be told to anybody else. And you're not there to be judgmental. You're there to help them. And if they need professional help, there's always the EAP program, Employee Assistance Program, that you can refer them to. But a lot of times, like you said, I walk up to people and say, hey, how's your day? How's your wife? How are your kids? And if you get them started on it, then it's going to eventually come back to what's bothering them on the job. Because if it's bothering them at home, it's generally because of something that did happen on the job.
I would say I passed through noon. I didn't stay very long, but I came after that call. I talked about the kid. It was starting my path towards I got to do something different and something lighter. But one of the best times I remember is I lived down the lake, so I had lake access in Lake Jackson. And I can't remember if you made it, but I know it was our shift. And Carly came. James brought his jet ski, and as a shift, we all went down and had this lake cookout thing that
was a lot of fun.
It didn't help me where I needed, because I needed a path to get me out of that career and do what I'm doing now. But it helped show me that it wasn't all alone. It wasn't all what I perceived it to be, which was nobody cares about anything but themselves. Is kind of the dark spot I was when I came through there, and that was a good memory. That was a fun time that we did. That made a big difference. Spencer Goodson says, I've always wondered what to do if you pick up a critical patient who has a weapon on him or her of some sort that you don't discover until you're en route. Do you turn it into the hospital or what?
That's a good one for Steve. Steve's a deputy coroner, so probably is a...
So you help him keister it and help him know.
I don't know. I heard I think it was Philip Langford. He's one of our transporters. He said the other day, he said, since police and fire and EMS are first responders, does that make the coroner the last responder? I thought it was pretty good. It was pretty funny. We got a kick out of it. It really depends. Is it a pocket knife? Is it a gun? What is it? I mean, a lot of people carry pocket knives, and that's not really considered a weapon.
I'd say a gun.
Yeah, if it's a gun, then yeah, I'd absolutely want to have somebody there to take control of it, because they can't carry it in the hospital. So you need to call law enforcement, turn it over to law enforcement, and if
that's just a safety thing.
Yeah, it's just safety. And if they have the permit and everything to carry it with them, hey, they'll give it back to them when they get out of the hospital.
Now it depends on what you mean by critical too. If they're unconscious, that's the easy route. I've had a few shady patients that I went on. I think I got shot. Now, he didn't have a weapon or anything, but he didn't want to talk to me. And I had to get the door shut and kick the cop, because the cop wanted to come on, oh, you're not in my truck.
Yeah.
And I tell him, like, dude, I am not the police. I don't care. Those are not quite the words I use, but I don't care what you did or what you do, man. It's me and you, and I'm here to make sure you're alive. And he told me something. The cops went at. I was like, I'm not telling you crap, man. It's not my business, and that's the key. Safety is what you're talking about.
Yes.
And absolutely a gun, because if you just leave it around, it's going to be trouble. But as long as you're worried about safety, but as long as you're worried about the crime, I've had medics worry about the crime. I was like, you're in the wrong set of mind.
Just worry about keeping you and your crew safe.
Yeah. So a question I have, which Spencer was talking about a firearm, which brings up a good point, because there's a lot of people out there don't know how to clear a firearm. Should that be something we should touch on?
I don't think that us as medics should be clearing weapons.
But what if you're en route? You're en route.
There are too many different guns, too many different mechanisms, too many different ways something can go wrong. So if you have people who have been taught how to clear one weapon and it's another weapon, it's just like, let's take a Glock, for example. There's a lot of safety mechanisms, but if you pull back and rack that slide, and your finger's on the trigger, guess what's going to happen?
It's going to fire.
It's going to fire. So if it's not firing in that person's pocket and you pull it out of their pocket and you set it somewhere, It's not firing over there either. I've never seen one discharged by itself.
Well, there's some people out there that say guns, that's a different.
Guns don't shoot people. People
some
shoot people.
I'm just saying,
That's something for another show. Let's be safe.
Here's the reality. How often does that happen in your career?
It's very rare. Very
right.
Rare. And most of the time, it's on the MVCs. They say, "Hey, I got a gun in my car or on my motorcycle. Would you get the law enforcement to take it?" Because they don't want it to get into the wrong hands because they know it's going
gun
to
safety and all that.
Yeah, they're going to a tow yard or it's going to a junk yard or it's going wherever, and somebody gets hold to it, and somebody kills somebody with their gun or holds them up. It comes back registered to them. Then they got a lot of explaining to do. So call local law enforcement, have them take custody of it, and they can always give it back to the person.
Well, the thing is, too, at the hospital, there's security there, too. So,
yes.
The security in the hospital should have a protocol in place because that is a patient's belongings. And per accreditation, they've got to have some plan in place for securing patient belongings.
They do. So, and here again, their protocols for, and we're just talking about Piedmont Newton because that's what I'm familiar with. They have local law enforcement come and pick up weapons, and then they secure their belongings.
Which makes sense.
Yes.
Yeah.
I had a 14-year-old placed in the back of a patrol car and stole Mom and Dad's car, flipped it. They wanted us to check him out, so we got there, shined the light, raised the shirt up. There was a gun.
And what'd you do?
I moved to the side and said, "Gun!" Got out of the firing range.
Somehow you crawled under the stretcher, even though it was locked into place and hid there.
I just got out of his way, and the policeman took it. Luckily, it wasn't loaded, and Mom wanted to know where he got it from. He said he found it in the bushes.
Of course. So we're coming down to about, you started about 2:30, right?
Yes.
So an hour's a good time. I like this question to end with here. Funniest experience with your EMS career? Tom, put yourself on camera. Funniest experience.
Having mayonnaise dumped on my head.
Oh, that's just nasty.
Tell me about it.
That's just brutal.
But it ensued into there was retaliation.
Absolutely. But for those of you out there into the video land, never let anybody in public safety know your weakness.
Yes.
Funniest moment. I had a captain one time. We are all hanging around the station. It was kind of a slow night. And here comes this crazy captain around there with water pistols blasting. 11:30 at night. Chasing us through the parking lot. Tom.
This is like
not me. I wouldn't do such a thing.
This isn't my story, but that reminds me, you set up a defensive driving course at Newton, and James was my partner. And we went through it, and then we put it in reverse and went back through it as fast as we could. That was fun. What's your funniest moment?
Probably when they hid my food.
That doesn't sound fun at
No.
all.
Yes.
There's more to that story. You can tell more of that
tree
story.
bark? Or your twigs?
Yes, we were very busy that day, and they hid my food, and I knew I'd made my food. I just couldn't find it. They put it in the stove.
So mine has nothing to do with pranks at all. Mine is actually a call where we go on a possible overdose. And my partner at the time is this little dude, like 5'0", 100 pounds. And I'm me, which is at the time like 370 pounds, 6'7". And we get on the call, and it's this person. Ultimately, the result of the call was she just cried for help. Okay, so it wasn't that serious. And you could tell the way things, when the cops, of course, responded, the cops that show up, one's like 6'6" and a bodybuilder, the other's like 6'5" and a bodybuilder, and me. And this little guy. And the guy's like, wait, let me go talk to her. Let me just talk to her. So okay. And he walks about the length of an ambulance away from us, and we're just shooting the breeze. So the next thing I know, this girl jumps up, grabs him in a bull steer headlock, and takes it to the ground. And we're just staring. We're starting chuckling. She starts, well, I'm like, Okay, she's hit him. You guys might want to do something about that now. But he kind of got what he deserved, so I'm going to let him have a little of that for a minute. Because he wanted to take her aside. He thought he could connect with her like he saw on TV. I'm like, how's that feel, Dr. Phil? You got rode like a rodeo clown, man.
Oh, goodness.
And she thought it was the funniest thing in the world. And he was, actually, all of us did except him. He didn't think it was funny at all. But, so how do you want to wrap it up? Tell people about the school, all that jazz.
Well, of course, we've got classes starting all the time. We just started an advanced EMT class here at Georgia Institute of EMS. We really are trying to be as progressive as we can be in the EMS profession. This whole show is intended for us to have an avenue of communication open so anyone can ask questions about the profession, about classes, any topics related to EMS. And going forward, we'll start having some themes going forward. Today was our first official episode, and I think it's been a success. I want to thank everybody. Thanks, Steve and Amy, for coming in today and joining us. We're all new at this. It's only going to get better as it goes. So even for those of you out there, if you have any requested topics that you want us to talk about, please email us or send it to us through Facebook. We'll be glad to put it together. Me and Charles will be a regular on here on a basis, so we will try to make this as good as possible for everybody. I want it to be a community effort, though, for everybody, so we can all learn together as we go forward. The one thing, just, we got to pay the bills, right? So we've got an EMT class starting the end of this month, the end of September. Let me get the exact date, but registration is going on right now. And if you want to register for the class or want more information regarding the class that starts September 28th, you can go to georgiaemt.com and get information, or you can give us a call at 678-561-2368, and we'll be more than glad to help you get registered, signed up, and along the way to that new career of becoming an EMT and having all the fun that you've heard that we've had. Because I know, for one thing, I can say that it's been a rewarding career. I've had my ups and downs with it, but I think I've had more ups than downs, and I've really enjoyed it. So.
And you get to see we're normal people.
Yeah, we are.
I'm normal. I don't know about
not the slightest.
Yeah, I don't know if that's 100% accurate, but
Right.
we are people. And we are approachable. So, that's that's it. Charles, take it away.
So I do a bunch of other shows. You can just find all that stuff at charlesmcfall.com. Most are family friendly. One or two aren't, and they're clearly marked that way. But we'll be back every week. Like I said, we'll have a theme. We're going to have call-ins. We'll have all kind of stuff. So get your thoughts together. Start posting them on the Facebook page, Georgia Institute of EMS, and we will take the questions. And it's all about that collaborative effort. So that's going to be it for the EMS Underground.
EMS Underground episode 1. Damn. Yeah.
So this is where you hit stop.
Stop. This is it.